You're Rhonda
Leneaugh.
Leneaugh.
Just
Okay.
like Jay Leno.
Okay. I wasn't going to try and take a bad guess at
Only
it.
spelled harder.
So, what is your background in teaching English as a second language?
I never went to school for it. I have a bachelor's in education, elementary education. Then I went on and got a master's in special education for K-12. With that special education has really helped me throughout the years in all my teaching because of the background that I learned from there in helping students learn, be able to learn, and the ones that just are not getting it or difficult. So they had a teacher here and she retired, and they asked me if I would try it. They said, could you please try it for 6 months and see? Well, it just turned out just right, because the students that come for ESL are so appreciative and happy to be able to have someone teach them English. And the students, it's such a big variety. There's people that have little or no English except hello, bathroom, really basic. And so that was real difficult because everybody is pretty much, at a different level. So that was extremely hard to try to set up something for everyone. So then I had the opportunity to split the classes. So I went with an intermediate and intermediate beginning. And with the help of the Literacy Council here, it's been great because I teach GED and adult basic ed and teach all the English and the grammar, the writing. For that's my primary part of the job. I just do this on Monday and Wednesday mornings here. But the Literacy Council has been so good about having me refer students to them, and we're talking about students that do not read English, they do not write English, they know very little. And so I have things. I'm going to go speak to the Literacy Council. They want to know some things about ESL because they have a lot of tutors, and I think they said about 40%. No, it's bigger than that. I think it was 70 are ESL students. And there again, those tutors, some of them can get right into it, but others, find it difficult with no educational background at all. Mm-hmm. And some do very well with their students.
Do you feel like there's a good representation of ESL teachers in the Rapid City area?
I do. I think that this Literacy Council is really good about, they're always training tutors. And so that's good. That's been real helpful for what the needs that weren't getting met here. There's also churches that offer language assistance, nonprofit organizations, and that's very well. I think the Literacy Council also opened evenings because that is a big problem. Most ESL students are either looking for a job or have a job, and it's usually a daytime job. Mm-hmm. So they need something for the evening. So they've just been doing it for about a year where they have conversational class at the public library twice a week in the evenings. And I promote that here too for my students that want to go over and, number one, meet new people or meet somebody maybe from the country they came from. It's called conversation class, and so it's about the speaking and the pronunciation. And so it gives them a good venue to get together for that. And it's been pretty successful according to my students. They're ready to go with starting another 5-week course starting in March. I think the first week.
We have to look at dropping in on there and checking that out.
Yeah.
Like I had said, my approach from it, I was intending to go, to South America to teach, and I hadn't even really considered teaching it here at home. So I wasn't really familiar with much of the resources that we had here because it wasn't something that I was looking at doing here. Something I was looking at doing somewhere else. So I found it kind of difficult to find some resources at first, but then once I found out about the Career Learning Center here having some resources, it seems like things started opening up for me for seeing stuff.
And if you went over like to Sioux Falls, they are like a corridor for many people to come to South Dakota, and they have a huge program. I have gone over there and got some training and kind of shadowed with some of them over there, and wow, they have so many students. But here there's not that many.
Yeah, I was just
This
looking
way.
on the state education website to the number of English language learners in the western side of the state is so small that they can't even represent them in the numbers for statistics.
Really?
Yeah,
No, I can
because
believe that.
it would like there's such a small number of them, it would be personally identifying information.
Yeah.
In the statistics. So.
Yeah. And I'm sure South Dakota, Sioux Falls has so many more jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a downer here in Rapid City because we have the highest rental rates for people, for the whole state, actually, and housing is really a big deal. It needs big improvement here.
Yeah, there's definitely some issues.
Sure,
with
and
that.
then you consider the wages.
Yeah.
South Dakota's
Oh,
not
yeah.
very high on the totem pole for wages, so I think that's another hard thing. And whereas I think Sioux Falls is better, and their job openings are always there.
Mm-hmm.
Where we don't have a lot of things to choose from here other than like tourism or restaurant work or motel work.
Mm-hmm.
And we have people that come in with bachelors, and doctorates, masters in their own countries. That's the thing that really, really disturbs me, is because I had a registered nurse, young man from the Philippines, and I have a doctor in here, a medical doctor, family doctor from Puerto Rico. Could not get jobs. I couldn't believe it. Because I know that the regional really recruits and people come from other countries, but he was just getting discouraged, ready to go back to his country. And here just last week he got a job at the Eye Institute. But it's hard when people are very educated and they cannot get work here. They're asked to take a GED. It's just kind of insulting. And then their credentials are not recognized here. I have a veteran, and in my intermediate I have a veterinarian, I have a civil engineer, I have another engineer. I'm not sure what her field is, but I mean, they came here to live. They married Americans, and this is going to be their home. And in the summertime, I spend my time teaching citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
So along with that, there's several that do want to stay and make this their home. So, and we're so restricted, and our funding is not very much over here because we have such a small number from the state to help us, that if people come for the summer and visit and they're just taking a job here for the summer, we have a lot of young people that do that. We have no program for them. They'll come and want to, but the focus of this program is people who desire to stay and live here and make their lives here and get a permanent visa and then go on to get a citizenship. So that makes it different.
Yeah. Are you bilingual?
No.
No?
I am a Rosebud Sioux, tribal Sioux member. I do know some of my language, but no, not in any. People, that's the first thing they think. Well, how do you communicate with them? Do you know other languages? Absolutely not. I have a dictionary for many of the people that come, and that's really helpful. I let them take it home, study and know what things are, especially the ones that are more beginning, and then we can talk about what they're looking at. I give them like a list of words, maybe having to do with grocery shopping, and then they come in and we work on the pronunciation, because that seems to be just as important. And I think people talk so fast in their own languages, and they're used to having people over here really speak quickly. But I said, I have found that if I ask them to slow down, with their language and slow down with English, and 9 times out of 10, people are able to understand them a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes from my grandmother was so deaf. She had a little hearing aid, but it was here, and there was a cord, and it came up here. You had to speak so loudly to her. So all those years, I learned to speak softly and not yell. I learned to speak with my mouth more. Well, she just began to start reading lips and slowed things down, and I said, that's what you need to do. And if you open your mouth, so many of the languages have a different way of they find it very hard to pronounce, like snake. Showing them that where my tongue's going and everything, that's a big deal. But on the other hand, I'm always open to learning. And we talk about what is your greeting in your country. And I'm telling them your language is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I love to listen to it, and I want to learn too. And so I do. I learn from them their languages, and especially when it comes around a holiday for their country or ours, really incorporate how unique and important that they are. And when you go to a new country, I think if you're going to go, I mean, that's the biggie, establishing that relationship. I say that's the number one thing, because they're happy to come. They're always, like I said, so thankful that you came. It's like meeting people that have such a great appreciation for opportunities. And so I find them quite endearing. And you probably will too when you go.
Yeah.
If you do go to Peru and do that, you really fall in love with the people and the country. That's what I keep hearing from people that go to do it, and then they don't just do it, they go back.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were talking, they continue to do it.
It would be nice to be down in Peru right about now with all the snow on the ground.
I know, and everybody was afraid, and I said, you know what, this doesn't look that bad to me.
Yeah.
And I had my appointment with you, and I had plenty of stuff to catch up on, so I said, I'm going to go. He's just right over here down the road, and I bet you he'll come. So sure enough, you do.
Yep. So I have so many questions I would like to ask you, but for the purposes of this interview, is really mostly about high stakes and standardized testing. Do you have experiences with a lot of standardized testing and high stakes testing?
High stakes, I'm not familiar with that.
Like No Child Left Behind, where the funding that the school gets is based on the test scores of the students.
Oh, yeah.
And also high stakes for the students, where it's, one test may determine whether or not they graduate or get their GED or something like that.
Well, back in Mission, sure, for sure. When I lived on the reservation, I lived there for 25 years. I came from Colorado and came up here, and then went to the University of Vermilion, and then, boy, did I get a rude awakening about that and the testing, because the testing that we had to do there at Todd County in Mission it's predominantly Native American children, and I could see that testing, when they show a picket fence, and I mean on and on in there, you can just see that people that have a dominant other language and they come, they're going to have a hard time. And if you look at poverty, I've done a lot of studying in poverty, and whatever's going on at home, it's not going to be a priority to go to school. So we have students that test low all the time, and then they're in trouble with the state and with the funding and with the federal government because they're not meeting these. Well, they're really trying to change it, that No Child Left Behind isn't working there. So they went a different route and really focused on their language, their original language, and promoting that and building up who they really are, and that they have a place here in this land. And they call it Turtle Island, this whole United States. And so I always wondered, well, why? And they showed me, looking at it, it looks kind of like a turtle, the United States. But I could see the disadvantage in every kid. I'm not kidding, little ones to see high school, whenever it was take the standardized test, they just, and I don't know if they've ever done studies on who does this. Makes a pretty design on there. And I mean, the accuracy of them is very questionable to me too.
Yeah, I know that in some, I think it was in high school when I was first instructed in that if you didn't study for the test, just pick one column and just mark it all the way down, and you've got a better chance of passing. That's not really teaching anyone anything. That's teaching.
We're saying we know you might flunk or you might score low, but this will give you at least I've heard that too. Just go down. But I think it's really hard to do that. And I understand about funding and everything, but it seems like after all this time, and we have all these, so many different peoples and from other cultures here and everything too, why are we basing it on it? And then I've heard people talk, and I kind of agree too, that the education we're doing today is much like the education they did, 60, 70 years ago. And we all sit You know, we learn this way and we sit in a chair and, you know, it's still that way, like somebody's talking with you. So with ESL students, I'm never up. I'm sitting with him. I'm one of them. And that really works well. And I change where I sit. And I never met a happier bunch. Any ESL student isn't happy walking through the door. Oh, thank you, teacher. I said, I'm teacher, but I want you to call me Rhonda, because we're also friends. It's that, it's trying to get that rapport that you care and you like it. You know, I don't know. There's so many classrooms. I mean, I had a little niece. Her and the teacher didn't get along. And this kid, you know, is so smart. She's like an A student, but the teacher would say things, and she's pretty elderly, and she said, no, that isn't true. You know, she corrected the teacher, and they didn't want her at that school, so they sent her out to Douglas. Just amazing. And Douglas ended up being a way better school too. But I mean, they all have something to offer, but I don't think you can do anything with students unless you build a rapport with them first. And then if they don't know, even if it comes to reading out loud, and I notice they're not on edge like students in another school. Like here, if you have reading out loud, if you have somebody that has a problem with dyslexia or something and their reading's been really poor, here they can just say pass till they feel comfortable. Because I said, I need to hear you. I need to see how your pronunciation is. And so sometimes it's okay to take baby steps if you do go somewhere to. I like to get to know them first before I ever even start anything, you know.
And that kind of leads to my next question then too. What sort of assessments do you prefer to administer to your English learning students?
Well, actually, I don't care much for what they give me. I'm bound to give this test. It's called Best Plus. It's an oral test. That's all it is. It's oral, and then there's different levels, and I prefer not to test them because they are so nervous and they want to I just can't tell you how nervous some people get when you say it's a test. I wish I didn't even have to say it was. But they come and they sit here and I ask them questions with this Best Plus, and every now and again I clear everything off there, and then I turn the screen where they have to tell me about a picture. And but I would say I wish I never had to give a test to anybody till they were here, like for 3 months, till they felt good about me, because every time I give them it again, boy, they zoom up. And I know that was in the way. So to me, it's not a good measure. But the state wants to know if they're making a gain. That's the bottom of the line for adult basic ed, GED, college prep. All of them are measurable by this test that they give. And if they're really good in mind, then they've tested up high, they turn around and have to take the one that the state has, and it's called a TABE, Test for Adult Basic Ed. And it's expensive. It's like $165, I think. It's a gift from the state. But I mean, it's in math, language, reading. But it gives you a real good idea. But that's where they see if we're doing our job, if our curriculum materials are good enough that we're using, and that they are making gains, because, well, they don't want to fund anything that people aren't making a gain, so they have to have their way to measure. But I'd say, I found out from the Literacy Council that they use a law book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it goes from 1 up to like 5, and then you can find other materials. But I don't like to be locked in to a book, so I do that, and you know, I do some grammar, and then we do some punctuation, and we do word games, and I like to switch it up while they're still learning vocabulary and that. So if somebody asks me, what's the best thing you've got on the market in here, I say it's in here, because I want to try things that work for them. I don't want to get them locked into something. But because so many of the people, the tutors, are not necessarily educators, it's comfortable to use maybe the law book. But it's pretty good. After I get to a place where they can do some reading, I start them in one, and it's got a workbook. So it's based on writing and learning English and writing English at the same time, which is a good balance. Yeah.
So, do you think that the assessments that you do or the assessments that you do for your English language learners, do you think that, I mean, I know you said that when they first take them, and maybe a little too early for them to honestly take them, but when they do take them and pass them, and as they progress through learning, do you feel that they are a realistic representation of their knowledge of English?
That, not so much, just that oral test. When I can finally give them a tape, I can visually see all the different things that they've learned, because it'll list all of the skills for reading, you know, and all of them from that. It'll divide it out. That's more of a visual of what they really are doing. And after they're here so many hours, I think it's like 40 hours, then you give them another one in an area. That works, that test, because it is so detailed and it pulls everything out for you.
And that's which test?
I like that. And it's called TABE, T-A-B-E, acronym, Test for Adult Basic Education, and that's provided through the state. Free of charge for people that are going to come into any program, adult basic ed or a GED. And see, when they test up out of mine, I can tell that they're going to improve, but then they can only go so far. In intermediate level, when they've reached that top intermediate level, well, they're ready to take a tape. Then they're scared again, but I don't go put them on a computer. I give them a written one, which is a lot, you know, to de-stress. And then if I have somebody come in that's good with computers already, then I'll have them give it. But testing, you know, for the sake of testing is hard to do. But even when they come in to take my test, first we sit down and talk. I don't just like, come on over and take the test. And the thing is to get them comfortable enough not to say, yes, no, tell me more. Make sentences and thoughts. And some of them really get it right away and they kind of beef it up. But I would say it's so hard to give somebody a test right out of the chute. I wouldn't even.
Do you think that testing too early gets in the way of their learning? I think that makes it like a stumbling block for them, make them more nervous than they need to be about it.
Maybe not with me, because I don't show them the results. I just say, you did very well. I'm able to find out where you're at. We're going to find something that is really going to be helpful to you. And they're not so much as I want to see what I got and everything. They're different than kids in the United States, you know. And so I leave it at that. I play it down. But I wouldn't say it's a hindrance, but I think it's because I don't play it up, you know. I play it down. And then when I've done a post after they've been here a while, then I show them the numbers. And then I show them, I have, you know, if you're at this level, you know these things. Then I can show them, oh my gosh, you have gone up 2 levels, you know, and it's like, you know, but nobody wants to shoot somebody down when they're just getting going. I mean,
Yeah.
praise, that's all you do. And I find them to be very loving, and that a lot of them, most of them, want to hug you goodbye. Teacher, thank you very much. Have a good week. I mean, so gracious, more gracious than I've met, than people can be here,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and never like ready to be done, and never like bored. I don't think you hear in their language, I'm bored, you know, the big bore with all these young people, but so that's all
I
different.
spent some time in the Multicultural Center at the School of Mines,
Mhm.
and down there, and then also in the IT department where I work. We get a lot of exchange students come down there, and it is, you see them walking around campus, and they're so nervous all the time. But as soon as you sit down at the table with them and say, "Hey, how's your day going today?" Just, oh, they're so happy and so ready to just share everything and
There's
practice.
really normal people here,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
I know,
yeah.
Yeah, my brother-in-law went to School of Mines. He came from Norway, and he met my sister, and they got married, and oh, he was just a wonderful fella. Gosh, we learned so much from him in Norway, and he wanted to take us all over there, and he had a good engineering business. But it's really interesting to know about people of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I always want them to share. Bring pictures. And that's another thing I ask them to do a little presentation after we all know each other well. Talk about their country, some of the difficulties where, you know, because South America, you know, things are hot down there in the different countries, in Brazil right now. And I just had a gal go home. She's from Colombia, and she goes home for about 2 months back to visit her family. But she met some guy out in the interior. He's a cowboy guy and taking care of these cows. And I don't know how they met, but he was over there in Colombia for a vacation, and they got together. So she says, "Oh, I don't like cows, but she loves him, but he always lets her go home back to Colombia." But she has shared so much about her country with pictures, and
Yeah.
they're from all over the place.
It's funny, my bookmark, actually I'm using your business card as my bookmark right now. The page that I'm bookmarked to right now is talking about getting students to describe their home and their culture and talk about their lives as ways to get them to practice with you without them being feeling like they have to learn something new,
Mhm.
where it's more about them and
Sharing
being able to
themselves
share
with
themselves.
you puts
Yeah.
that level of anxiety way down, because they're happy to show you. They're happy to show you a picture of their parents and how they live in Colombia, and it's all pretty rich.
Well, that's about all I have for questions there, and looks like we've got about half an hour on the.
Yeah, you
So,
said
but-
about a half an hour,
Yeah.
so we did good, huh?